computer. Hey everybody, my name is Aaron Iceberg. I'm the Learning Coordinator for the Center for Excellence at New Technology High School. And today I have with us Brian Schock, who's an expert around adult connections and implementing project-based learning in his classroom, which is where he's at now. And obviously he's showing some good perseverance, as you can see above his head. So welcome, Brian.
Thanks, Aaron. Definitely a pleasure to be working with you.
Great, thanks. Well, one of the things I wanted to have you on today is, in one of these upcoming series we're doing is building around adult connections and authenticity. And when we do our workshops around introduction to PBL or even follow-up around project-based learning, one of the biggest questions we get is around adult connections. What does it look like? How do we do it? And it tends to be a roadblock. So tell me a little bit about like our plan, like what does PD look like? And tell me maybe some tips and tricks.
Yeah, sure. Let me first start by saying I'm not surprised you get a lot of questions from that. I think that anytime you're talking about connecting outside of your classroom, that can be intimidating for people. The thought that my students' work and my students' actions will reflect upon me as a teacher can be intimidating. And so I think one of the things that we need to do first is embrace this and think of this for the positives that it can be. It's not uncommon for me to hear a teacher say, do I have to do a public connection? Do we have to do that? And to me, that's not a have to, it's a get to. There's nothing that I do as a teacher that kind of gets me more bang for my buck than connecting with the public and connecting with public audiences. So I think one of the things that we'll definitely focus on is the idea of who do we want to work with? When do we want to work with them, and how will that work within our project? I think that maybe sometimes we have a preconceived notion of what a public audience has to be. That somebody will watch a video, and in that video, it's at 7 o'clock at night, and there's 150 people, and the teacher's sitting there looking at this and saying, "Holy cow! I don't know if we can pull that off." And so I think we're going to challenge teachers and schools, maybe idea of what a public audience looks like.
Yeah, I really like that. And one, I love that approach of not have to, but we get to. Like, it's really an honor for us. And one of the things that we know is that people in our community, they want to help schools, they want to help us, but they often don't know how. And I agree. Like, I've sat there and watched these videos, and it's like this audience of 700 people, or they're walking around showing their public art designs, and it's super intimidating for a lot of us. But it's like, well, what are the simple bite-sized pieces? Because these are opportunities for our kids who often don't have exposure to other professions to interconnect. Really kind of closes that equity gap. So tell me a little bit also, like, what difference do you see with your kids when you bring in that adult connection? And then we'll talk about what these trainings might look like for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say I've been a teacher for about 20 years, but I've also been a coach for about 20 years. I've been a track and a cross country coach. And the reason I mention that is that a lot of the dynamic change that happens as a coach is also the dynamic change that happens in a classroom. And let me explain what I mean. Most of my athletes view me as someone who is there to help them because they know they have a meet coming up, and they know they have an opportunity to do something in public, right? And they want me to help them get to where they can get. As soon as I involve adults and the public in my classroom, it creates that same dynamic shift where my students see me as an advocate, as a helper, as someone who can help them be successful. They don't see me as somebody that they have to jump through hoops for in order to get a grade. They're looking at, hey, how can I do the best job I can possibly do? And that bringing in that public audience or working with that adult or community member oftentimes helps shift that dynamic into students seeing the teacher as an advocate and not just as a grade giver. That's something that I really don't want to be known as a teacher, as just the guy who gives grades. I want to be their advocate, their person that pushes their learning and helps their understanding and helps guide them along the way.
That's amazing. I think that this really speaks to just that shift that we're trying to see and trying to create when we develop projects. And it's more than just developing a project, right? It's creating that advocacy and that relationship with kids. So I'm really excited to develop this work with you and share that. And I think that one of the things that we're talking about is one, yeah, we can do this on site, but also upcoming, we're going to have a series of dates where people can sign up where we'll do 3 2-hour sections where you can learn how to do it, some tips and tricks, because it is intimidating for us teachers. What else might they learn in some of these sessions, and why they might want to attend?
Yeah, so I'll say that the goal is to be as practical as possible. We want to leave this workshop not just with a day of theory on why we may or may not want to do this. We want to leave this workshop kind of ready to go. So in the course of this workshop, we're going to identify, as I said before, who are the people that we want to work with, when do we want to work with them, I'm gonna challenge people to think beyond just at the very end, and we'll go more in depth into that during the workshop. But then also how and what capacity will I work with this person? So we're gonna leave with a plan of exactly who I'm contacting and be ready to roll.
Awesome. Well, that sounds really exciting. I know I could really benefit from that even in my own practice. Really excited to have these dates and this work available for people, and to really just build that advocacy for kids and really make it more than just at the end product, but really how do we help use these adult connections to move the learning forward. With that, Brian, thank you very much for joining us today. Really appreciate it and really looking forward to working with you soon.
Aaron, definitely a pleasure. Send some of that California weather to the Midwest.
I will definitely try and do that as soon as I can. I think the wind blows that way, so it's coming your way soon. So great. Take care, Brian.